morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Iyori Folani. I thought it's about time we, rolled on to the topic of former President Jonathan defending the ex-NSA Dasuki. As you recall, that was in London. He'd gone to deliver a speech, and after the speech, when there were questions, the whole matter of Dasuki Gate, as it has come to be known, came up. And perhaps the former president shocked many when the way he's been paraphrased in all the media, or not paraphrased, quoted. The way he's been quoted in all the media, categorically, he says, "You cannot say the National Security Advisor stole $2.2 billion. It is not just possible." You can't be more emphatic than that. And then the former president went on to explain that they bought ships, they bought tanks, and all sorts of weaponry. So where did we get that money from? Okay, be that as it may. But the whole question of a former president commenting the way they choose to comment, I guess that's one of the things that we might be looking at, indeed, equally, if not more, than the content of what was said. Because effectively, he has commented on the whole anti-corruption war. And, we have people whose sort of preserve it is to talk about those kind of things. Larry Suraj, Chairman, Civil Society Network Against Corruption. Thank you very much for coming on, sir.
Always a pleasure. Good morning.
And Barrister Malaki Ugumadu, human rights lawyer, and currently National President of the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights.
I'm getting old in that capacity. I'm 1 year in this it's my pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me start with you, from the point of view of a social commentator. Mm-hmm. The former president, Jonathan, commenting in this way that you cannot say Dasuki, the former NSA, stole 2.2 billion. It's not just possible. Now, of course, words are very important, especially to you lawyers. I don't believe stole is the word. Steal or stolen, that's not the word. I think they've been referring to it from the beginning as the arms deal fraud. But the former president probably just took a shortcut and said that you cannot say the ex-NSA stole. Now, commenting like that, does that surprise you a bit? Because usually former presidents are reticent about policies of the incumbent, especially the immediate past president. What did you think about that comment?
I concede to your last position that they remain reticent. Indeed, circumspect. Mm-hmm. David Cameron resigned the second time in less than 2 months on account of the need to remain reticent. And he gave a morally high reason why he did that. Namely, that having been the Prime Minister of Great Britain, I cannot afford to sit as a backbencher because I will constitute a serious distraction to Theresa May and her team. That was the second resignation after resigning first as a Prime Minister, again on a very high moral ground. Namely, that if I led Britain as the Prime Minister in a process by which the opinion of the entire population was assessed to remain in Great Britain, and I was defeated, then I had lost the moral platform to continue to exert the leadership position. First is to congratulate our former president. You will go completely into oblivion if after your tenure, you cannot even make presentations such as the one he has done now. So congratulations, our dear former president. However, to stretch it further is to say, look, his right to freely express himself is not foreclosed by reason of the fact that he was a former president. Okay. Nevertheless.
Now you've covered all the bases.
God bless you. Nevertheless. It's good to clear this ground. Because we're actually in a very completely flawed society, very convoluted, one that is amenable to confusion of all sorts if the clarifications are not laid bare. Therefore, First, we must attempt to put it in context. What was he saying? Where did he say it? And precisely what was the body of the statement he made?
And it's just not possible. You can't say anybody stole 2.2 billion. It's just not possible.
Now, that statement must be situated within the context of the revelations already gotten. It is from the AMD scam or fraud that we have now gotten by investigation to hear that Mr. Obanikoro is already mentioning names and specific places where certain aspects of those money were given. It is from the same deal. Don't forget security votes. There was and there were appropriations to the security agencies in the years that he presided over in this country, running into about 3.6 trillion in a period of 4 to 5 years. Those were not specifically the ones that are being investigated now. So I would imagine that what would have been of utmost interest to Mr. President is to allow investigations to go the full hog. That way, he will be better informed as to the magnitude or limited, size of this scam. It is a scam on which the searchlight is presently on, trying to dig deep and understand precisely what happened and the magnitude of what happened. To make such a statement is almost amounting to ambushing, preempting.
Indeed. Let me come back to you, Malaki.
Yes.
Thank you very for that, bird's eye view, opening of bird's eye view. Larry, when the president spoke like that, the former president, when he spoke like that, there are all sorts of implications. Interestingly enough, somewhere in there I read that, look, these matters are in court, so I don't want to talk right now. Well, I'm wondering, what left is there to say if the matter is in court and you're going? So, do you think it was a mistake? It wasn't planned? Because we got to look at all. He went there. Journalists will throw these questions out. I don't know if you think, first of all, that the former president was within his rights to have spoken the way he did, bearing in mind the protocol that exists among guys who have been presidents before. Do you think somehow they just threw it at him? Or in short, what did you think when you heard that former President Jonathan has actually categorically defended former NSA Dasuki?
I think also flowing from what Malaki said, especially with the latest revelation with regards to Mr. Obanikoro, the former Minister of State for Defense, and the listing of the beneficiaries of certain amount of money that came from the NSA's office. And if someone could already reveal that a particular person got about $3.5 million from the NSA's office, that is just one person. How would you imagine at that point of revelation for the former president to say it is not possible to have even stolen? And the truth of the matter is not just stolen 2.2 billion. I mean, remove $3.5 million. Yeah, remove $3.5 million from $2.2 billion. You're already just left with about 1.8 billion. So it means by the time it goes round, $2.2 billion is even actually a tip of the iceberg from what must have actually gone out of the office of the NSA.
And the former President Jonathan would have been aware of all the news reports.
You see,
and then when he now, on top of that, comments that I don't want to say too much because it's in court.
No, it's actually a deliberate. And unfortunately, it's because we operate a system where people actually thrive so much on this primordial sentiment and then unnecessary whipping up of interest by trying to reduce issues to personalities, to ethnic backgrounds, and to religion. You would also note that just 2 days ago, the wife of the former president had a matter in court. She was the one that sued some women had to go to court to also go and pay solidarity to her, which are issues bordering on. He had not spoken also about that. There's a whole moral question about how the wife got that amount of money. At some point in time, the president already said, oh, I am not even aware there was this gamut of corruption going on under me. So the best I would say is that the law should take its due course. But realizing the implication, unfortunately, I mean, and I should say, that is what we felt. I had an interview with a newspaper 3 days ago, and my position was, as long as it's not directly linked to some of those misapplication and misappropriation of funds, the mere approval for the procurement of arms and diversion of such money after the presidential approval is not holding the president responsible. It is the officer in charge who then does otherwise that must answer for that. But with this new statement by the president, he is already now throwing his hat in the ring, and that means he would need to come and explain for some of those things. So if you're saying it is not possible, then now if the anti-corruption agencies should invite him, and I think that is the next thing, for him to come and say, okay, you have said it's not even possible. So can you actually tell us how these monies then disappeared? We all know that the Office of the National Security Advisor was meant to have coordinated all the armed forces in combating insecurity in the system. And that includes the spread of Boko Haram. And we all knew how Boko Haram became not only just an insurgency and insecurity, but a business under the armed forces, to the extent that we're already seeing former chief of Air Force, former chief of Army staff, who are plea bargaining to see how they return some of the money that were ill-gotten under President Jonathan through the Office of the National Security Advisor. So we're still not just looking for 2.2 billion. It goes beyond 2.2 billion. 2.2 billion was actually a particular amount that went the way that it shouldn't actually have gone by then. So there are still others. So I think, like I said, it is now open for the president to actually, unfortunately for him, and very unfortunately, he has removed and deprived himself of that statesman status that was accorded him before now, by not bringing him into the matter.
Okay.
And so now he has to also...
Because I can see, I can see what you're saying, because I know that Larry is referring to, you can't take it away from President Jonathan. He's a statesman. He gave up office, conceded defeat, and so all of that, people were working on that capital. But I wonder if he hasn't decimated the capital by this, quote unquote, an arguable unpresidential declaration, commenting effectively on a very, very important policy of his successor. But Larry said sometimes people muddy the waters, in this kind of a situation. I recall that President Jonathan also, commented in the course of the interview after his Oxford Union lecture in the UK. He had commented, and it probably has an implication that he said, he worked for the next generation, not for the next elections. And he worked in that manner as a means of ensuring that the Nigerian child shall have a secure future. Your comments?
Very subjective. Extremely subjective and open for further interrogation. I have said his former position as the immediate past president of Nigeria does not foreclose his right to interact freely and express himself. But please recall that about a month or two ago, he was again cornered by you journalists after his meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari. He informed the crop of journalists interviewing him that, look, there's nothing special about this. It has been ongoing. We've been having most times nocturnal meetings where you are not privy to what was going on and you wouldn't have gotten any information as to that. That is the dignity that you're talking about regarding the channels of communication and interaction. Now that you have decided to take a definitive position regarding an ongoing investigation and trial, in law, when you put up your good character in the course of an action in defamation, for instance, what you are doing is unwittingly exposing yourself for either verification or repudiation of those good character. That, in my view, is what is happening at the moment. And I take it from where my friend just landed. Namely that it will be of interest to get more lead, to shed more light by the very person who must take responsibility, notwithstanding the very perfect way he has. In short, sometimes I know why you people now call him a lawyer. Section 15, subsection 5 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, insists that it shall be one of the objectives and directive principles of the state to abolish corruption. I've not forgotten your question. Your question is about the future of our children. Before we get to the future of those children, will the Nigerian state disappear, evaporate under the weight of this existential challenge? I call it existential because indeed it is. If you are going to leave that insurgent group, Boko Haram, don't forget they were already in Kogi, advancing aggressively before the election. If they were left on account of the inability of the Nigerian state through the security agencies, effectively and sufficiently equipped with appropriations enough to tackle that insurgency. If you did nothing about that, by now, like I told one judge, that when the ceilings of this nation collapse, that chair you are sitting down will not be there. If you left that untackled, if you went to what is happening in the judiciary, you go to education, you go to agriculture, which used to record about a very high percentage of fraudulent activity through the subsidy on fertilizers, and so on and so forth, you would find that what was needed is not about this notion about tomorrow, because the tomorrow will never come if what has to be done today is left undone.
Indeed.
Namely, to curtail the belligerent size of this insurgent group with capacity to demobilize. In short, they had taken local governments in several states. The integrity, the territorial integrity of Nigeria was no longer what it was under the same man talking. If you were not going to do anything about electoral malfeasance, in which, like I did say recently when I was just last month or 2 Mondays ago at Abuja to the Electoral Institute, that look, there are now concrete cases of election fraud duly identified by courts after interpreting what happened. Under Section 150 of the Electoral Act, INEC ought to prosecute those people. Over the years, we've not been prosecuting. What that does is to grow the impunity and get it to the stage where the challenge will not be that we will do it. It is that we will do it and nothing will happen. So, Mr. President, my brother, should remain quiet.
Really?
We are not in the mood. It is not amusing. we have honored him. I criticized him all through his tenure and glorified him when he conceded to power. He should retain that. If he moves further than this, perhaps we will start the fresh campaign.
Okay.
That is to tell us more about what he knows.
Well, right there, where you ended, Lanny, let me pick it up from there. Has former President Jonathan not inadvertently invited himself into the investigation? Because, there's been speculation as to the way this thing is going. It's not looking very good at all from what we're seeing in the public sphere, what is being admitted. Might the former president actually come under investigation? God forbid, would we have the spectacle where a former president could be charged to court? Those kind of speculations are going on. It might not be spoken about upfront, but these kind of speculations are going on. In this circumstance that the former president has now openly proclaimed, I mean, he's not a riffraff, he's not a nobody. And what he says, for what it is worth, will have its, international reverberations. So here is the former president, the immediate past president, criticizing, quite frankly, the work of the sitting president, their policies, by wiping it all out in one sentence. It just is not possible. Okay, we bought tanks, we bought ships. Where did we get money for that? We bought airplanes and
Some
other
of the
weaponry.
airplanes had one engine.
So the spectacle, I know it's going to come to the lawyer, but that spectacle of possibly having a former president of Nigeria in court explaining his stewardship. You said when you spoke last that perhaps the next step now is for the AFCC to engage with him.
No, let's deal with it legally speaking and then morally speaking. In terms of legally speaking, his immunity under the Constitution ended the day he handed over to the new president. So, from that point, he is not conferred with any form of immunity, either from investigation, prosecution, even imprisonment in any way at all. So let us have that clear. In terms of moral, that is what we confer, and like it said, people get to glorify him after the election and then also confer a status. I mean, trying to forget all the anomalies of the past, even with the recent past, even those associated with the days and weeks and months leading to the election, that we were aware of attempt at subverting the process of a free and fair election. The fact that we still had that handing over, people then conferred the status of that
let's forget everything
to
that
him and say, okay,
yes.
And then up until now, we were still just being careful to the extent, and then trying to say, it seems he was just very careless. He was very carefree as the president, and so many things were actually happening.
Because his wife, Madam Patience, also has her own issues in the legal system.
Oh, precisely. So
and now
unfortunately,
Oga himself
that
speaks
is why
like
I said,
this.
you see, it's going to be inevitable. And like my brother Malaki said, we might start the new campaign, because he had said, these are also being exaggerated. That was his word. But he did, are exaggerated.
But he did concede, I think, for the sake of completeness, he did concede that there might have been one or two problems. No, but the whole thing is likely being exaggerated. It's just not possible to steal 2.2 billion.
So the moment you say there's an exaggeration, then you know more than other people know.
Exactly.
So it means you have more information than we do. So we don't even need to waste too much time. So come and tell us exactly what you think was actually stolen, so that we can be chasing those ones and leaving the rest without just now exaggerating this. And also the context and the location where those statements are made are also very crucial. These were not said in Nigeria. These were not said to the Nigerian local media. It was said in the UK.
Exactly.
And this is where the anti-corruption effort of this government are being celebrated. So for you to go there and then punctured that image and credibility.
Well, if he has.
No, it's an attempt for you to say, because people would want to listen. And very unfortunately for him, you can see when Obasanjo, for instance, left government, there were internationally reputable organizations inviting him for interactions, for speaking engagement. This is very much unlike him in his own situation. And like you said, it's not going to be new in Nigeria. The former president of France, Sarkozy, he was prosecuted even after leaving office. The Lula in Brazil is still being investigated in Brazil. So if Jonathan is to be invited tomorrow, the only thing we would say is that he should be accorded his rights as a Nigerian, not as a former president anymore. is as a Nigerian
Well, they still have
under the Constitution.
but they still have their privileges.
The privileges are to his salaries and retirement benefits, and it is not anything to do with the law.
So when it comes to a matter of justice,
it is average to every Nigerian.
Equality
the lady
before
is
the
blind, so he doesn't even recognize
equality
him
before the law is the norm.
Is the norm.
And the judiciary probably is is sitting up a bit more.
It's going to be in the
it
same
used to.
dock.
Yes.
They won't build a new dock for the former president to stand in to take his. So it is equality before the law. So we need to start sensitizing Nigerians. We need, because I am sure you won't be surprised. The next 2 weeks or thereabout, you would see rented crowds that would start protesting and saying Jonathan should not be invited.
Yeah.
Jonathan should not be investigated.
Yeah.
And you won't be surprised even if you start having pipeline vandalization for people to also be calling for Jonathan not to be investigated.
Yes.
Because they attributed that to the last one and say, stop your anti-corruption war.
Okay.
You know, stop if you want pipeline vandalization.
Okay, time is sort of fast running down for the first half before we go into halftime. But I don't recall that the sitting, the incumbent administration has commented on that one way or the other for now. I wonder, that probably is the right reaction to sit on look, as it were, and let these things unfold. But I understand that Mr. Odedeyi Nikeja has called in. Good morning, Mr. Odedeyi.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to the panelists in the house.
Good morning. Thank you.
Since this issue broke, I do not remember anyone saying that Dasuki single-handedly stole $2.1 billion. So I think what the former president is saying is just begging the question. Because no one has said that this man single-handedly stole $2.1 billion. What we have been saying is that the man misappropriated the money that was put in his custody for the purchase of arms. So what I expect the former president to be saying is defend himself of the allegation by somebody like Chibolufa, that he was the one that authorized 100 million naira to be paid into his account. He showed us a memo to that effect. He should defend himself with the allegation by Olusametu that he was the one that asked that 400 million naira be transferred into his account for a purpose that is not defined up to now. He should defend himself of the allegation by Okonjo-Iweala that he was the one that authorized that millions of dollars be repatriated from the CBN account without due appropriation by the National Assembly. You know, those are the kind of allegations that we expect him to come out to defend himself, not to be saying that he is sure that Dasuki did not see $2.1 million. Now, from all the evidences that have been put in the public domain, I don't know what this present administration is still waiting for. It seems there is an unwritten rule that once you are a former president in Nigeria, you are free from any form of criminal prosecution, you are free from interrogation. Otherwise, I wouldn't know why they are still waiting for this man to be invited for questioning.
Okay, Mr. Dede, thank you very much. We got to go on that break now, but don't go anywhere because we'll be right back and we really do want to hear from you. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. We're looking at the situation that some are interpreting as the former president, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, inviting himself smack into the middle of the arms fraud scam, where 2.2 billion naira is being alleged to have been misappropriated. But the former president used the word stealing. That how can anybody say the former NSA stole 2.2 billion naira? It just is not possible. Okay, so he's invited himself into the matter, whether he intended it or not. Blessing, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Mr. Yori.
Good morning, ma'am.
Please, I would like to back Mr. Odedeyi on the last point I made that maybe there's an written agreement that if you are once a past president or something that they should know, because if not that, they will have called President Jonathan to come and explain to us what is going on. If his own wife, the matter is still in court. The problem now I'm having with this administration is that the old people that they've been picking for this allegedly stolen money, all this thing, they say until being proven guilty, they are not guilty. The case, Mr. Yori, please, where is the ending? That is why our former president can come out and be saying that the money is not. Supposing they owe somebody, maybe they put them in Kirikiri, maximum prison. He will not come out and start saying that I don't think he's so up to that money. Because you know that there is nothing has been done. That is why. So they should call him, let him come and tell us how much he gave to Dasuki, how much other people. This Openjo Awala money, we didn't know what to hand it up. The Minister of Petroleum, after they said something, they said she has cancer. We didn't see her. So many things down there that they didn't call Jonathan to come and explain. Maybe that is why he has the nerve to go to UK and start saying something. People respect him for saying that, okay, election, you said you accept defeat, but that he should not push his luck too far. He's pushing it.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Blessing. Yes, please. Did you want to comment on that?
I think the responses already shows not just how informed our people are now, but how the capacity with which they put issues in perspective. And on that score, I will also want to remind Nigerians that, look, what is this somersault about? President Jonathan himself, I think in his valedictory speech or soon after he left government, did insist loudly that his lieutenants should be ready for investigation. That many will be clamped down. I will not forget that. And if you just suppose that with the statement being made now, the confusion will set in. We, the people who are the victims of the madness, are not confused. Our eyes are straight on the ball, and we're insisting, as it were, that the relevant anti-corruption agencies or the financial, economic and financial commission should take advantage of this current revelation to say, look, we were even having hitches.
Yes.
Since you understand it better, look, in criminal matters, you can amend your charges as many times as possible within the limits of the law.
So President Jonathan is in a position to help the EFCC.
So that, look, the objective and directive policy of the Nigerian state under Section 15, Subsection 5, is to abolish corruption.
Indeed. Let me take Tunde, who has called in from Abuja. Good morning, sir. Tunde, Abuja, good morning, sir. I think we're having a problem with him.
No, I think we should actually also try to understand many of these corrupt people and then so putting them in context now.
I think people don't forget there's a law beside us.
No, of course. And
I've not mentioned how did they say it?
I said corrupt people. So
innocent until
proven guilty. Those ones that are proven guilty, and those ones. But some of them have already made confessions, and some of them are still actually immediately now jittery with the final outcome. I can
wait a minute. Sorry, sir, to interrupt you, but I've seen other jurisdictions where confessions are made and it is rejected subsequently. That I don't know why he was making that confession.
Except let me on that score, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act has also intervened to whittle down this kind of challenge. And what you are referring to is trial within trial. That is where the voluntariness or otherwise of confessional statements are put to test. Today, the way to make a statement is to have it recorded.
Okay.
With camera.
Okay.
According to the law, just so that the purpose of the law, which is to ensure speedy dispensation of justice, will not be delayed by that trial within trial, which can take as much as 3 years.
But hold this, because I can't deal with it now. I'm going to come back to you. They say sometimes some people confess to what they didn't even do. That's the different story.
No, that's probably under duress.
No. Maybe psychological problem. Mr. Usman in Abuja, thank you for holding on. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, although while I was watching the NEPA interrupted the power supply.
Oh, okay, but we're still live on the same subject.
Yeah, however, you see the comment, made by the former president is quite unfortunate. And I think the president should try to refrain himself from such a comment. He is too quick to defending criminal act. Number one, I remember when he was doing his media chat, there was when Sanusi said that $20 billion is missing from NNPC. He said that it's not true, that if $20 billion means America will know. I mean, that's to me, that response alone is childish. How can America will know? You see, number one. Number two, when there was this bomb blast, 1st October, they said that it was men. He was the first person to come out and defend men. That is not men. When investigation has not been conducted, now we come down to the Dasuki issue. He said it's not possible. How did he know? I think he is more or less dragging himself into the fray of investigation, of which I think the investigation agency, I think they need to look into, invite him to come and shed more. Probably there are other things that he knows, which we don't know, which the public don't know. So I think there's a need for him to be invited so that you come and explain to us. Let's understand what is happening, what happened to our money. Because we are seeing confessions. We are seeing confessions from Obanikoro. He said Dasuki gave me this money. So where was Dasuki getting this money? Is it from his farm or from central bank? If it is central bank, is Dasuki having a personal account in central bank or is from government coffer? That all this money are oozing out. We heard of the former scribe of PDP, Olusemetu. He mentioned his name. All these monies are coming from. So for someone to come out now and in defense of the international community and started defending the indefensible, I think there is more to it.
All right then. Thank you very much.
I should conclude on that statement. I actually alluded to what I was going to say.
Okay.
Let us not lose the fact and assume that this is an innocent error on the part of the former president. It's, for me, a calculated attempt of taking advantage of the current attempt at sanitizing the judiciary. It is perceived, probably, from that circle, that this is about the time to sustain the assumed public agitation against, the arrest of the judges, unknowingly that Nigerians actually celebrate that action. For whatever it is, Nigerians are conscious of the level of corruption that is pervasive with certain individuals in the judicial system. Now, like the last caller said, when the president was saying, we know who did it, it is not meant. There was an attempt at robbing certain individuals to say they don't want a Christian, they don't want a minority in the presidency. That was why that statement was made, until men then came out and say, oh yes, actually we are responsible for what happened. So it is for me a very clear attempt at starting a process where the anti-corruption effort of the current government will be undermined by statements that will be coming from people of his caliber.
I hear you.
And then it's important that we also take it from that point of view.
Okay, Prince, calling in from Palm Grove in Lagos. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
And the discussant.
Yeah, thank you.
Please, let us look at this issue critically. Because, one, he said he did not steal. How can we imagine that he stole 2.1 billion?
It's not possible.
I say it's not possible. That's what the president GEG said. And we are now talking, and if you look at it at the first phase, you'll be talking the way we are talking. But if you look at it inwardly, you'll find out that truly, all this money we have been mentioned, like he rightly said, that we bought aircraft, we bought this, we bought that. Out of this 2.1 billion naira that are complaining that Dasuki stole, Is it not from out of that 2.2 billion naira, that 2.2 billion dollars that these monies were being spent?
No.
The airplane that were bought, the warship, the guns, and so many things that were bought. Was it not out of this 2.2 billion that it was bought from? So for Nigerians to start telling us, and the discussants to start telling us that the man has shot himself on the leg, I don't think it's true.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. I'm not too sure that the special funds to prosecute the war against Boko Haram
was
goes
in
into
total
all
of 2.2 billion is a particular line.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, it is not the entire money that
At
went to the
all.
office of the NSA.
At all.
So that is what people need to understand. It goes beyond, far beyond
Indeed.
that.
Now, Malaki, the problem some might have is how exactly to place former President Jonathan, by which I mean that you begin to understand people if you interact with them. And so, but how are we not to understand President Jonathan, who has said corruption is not stealing? Before, for instance, that is, everybody knows that particular quote, corruption is not stealing. And now you come up with this. Contrary to Larry's position, I would, sort of stick my neck out a bit and say, the former president is just putting his foot in it. He's just, we're all human. And for whatever reason, he's just putting his foot in it. I wonder if Larry didn't overthink it a bit in his own proposal.
To be charitable to him, I'm talking of the former president, is to also recognize that you don't have the retinue of advisors that he used to have.
But he had them when he said corruption was not stealing.
I'm making a point, because we are talking about what has just happened. I'm making the point that it was bad that could even happen then. If that was possible when you had the retinue of advisors, then you will know how much more that can happen now, where you don't have those principally focused on moderating statements to meet the status and exigency of his position. And therefore, here we are, being led by all manners of persons, those with correct judgment, which is an issue, those with the proper requisite capacity to interpret the situation and lead the country in the direction that it should be, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
One moment, please. Mazi Okoroafo, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. That's Comrade Okoroafo Patrick, Yeah, you see, like what our guests are saying, this is an issue that you say your boy is in trouble. You must defend him as a father. Now, what I mean, I agree that the president said that corruption is on the ground. Now, what we as Nigerians should be looking at is that this issue, was he aware that all these things were at that very level? That is because what we are seeing now has made so many Nigerians, so that's not all of us now to know that this country we are thickly rich. It's just that we don't want to agree. We are just, when something happens, we try to. So that's what we, when they say that the man at the head, that when you climb up, don't remove the ladder. But when you remove the ladder, you don't know when to come down, whatever. Now the question now is this. It is not an eye-opener to any chief executive anywhere, not only the government. Now when you employ people to work for you, you should do what you call proper monitoring and know what's happening. Any appropriation, whether those things have been used for or not. It will help us. Because whereby you have given people jobs, you don't monitor, you don't check, no check and balance. That is why Nigeria says, honestly speaking, my brother, let us face reality. Corruption in this country, every year, according to Reverend Father Ozele in this cafe, he said, corruption now in Nigeria works with 4 legs instead of 2 legs. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day in the Lord.
Thank you very much, Mazi Okoroafo. One can't but help reflecting what might have happened if there had not been a change in administration. Clearly, everything that is now out there in the open being investigated, nobody would have heard anything about that. And we're hearing that in the light of all the confessions that we have got, refunding of funds, returning of funds, it's as Oimbo people say, it's quite a pretty penny, and unfortunately, it's also the stench is so very much. All of that would have been swept under the carpet. that kind of analogy, for some reason, wasn't considered by the former president, it would seem to me, when he now went ahead and was as categorical as to say it's not possible. What that then means is that it's a circus out there. That's the implication, that it's a circus out there. It's absolutely not possible.
We also forgot
and this I think is a big problem, because it shows that the change that this administration is talking about is not going to happen on its own. It's not going to happen of its own accord. It has to be worked. It has to be monitored. In fact, it has to be wrestled with. Did you say Chike? I understand is on the line. Good morning, Chike.
Yeah, good morning, sir. I'm a good follower of your show.
Good morning. Thank you very much for calling in, Chike.
Good morning.
Please go ahead with your comment.
Okay. Please, what I have to say is that what the statement from the president is actually normal service in our own system. The truth is that he was just trying to exonerate himself from any implication which that accusation on Dasuki may bring. The whole situation is, I just don't know, because the problem we're having in this country, if Jonathan and other people who have
okay, that speculation that he's, because the buck stops on the desk of whoever is in charge, and the president always is in charge. The speculation there is that he's seen it. I think Malaki was saying in a different context that usually sometimes you see the first page of an executive summary and you know exactly where it's all going to end. There's a bit of that, no doubt, in all of this.
Quite frankly, we can see all those. You can see that my mood is even going down. in pain, in anguish, in frustration.
Yet we must not give up.
You talked about what the character of the change that we have and what must happen to sustain it.
It's not going to change itself.
Now let me tell you, and this may be a little revealing. He should understand what I mean. With the background, the ideological background that some of us have and claim we have, we were certain that what needed to change was the political class in Nigeria, and not from one party to the other. What that meant was that it was clear to us that whether you liked it or not, there is this solidarity amongst them on certain irreducible minimum. And that once the struggle is about those irreducible minimum, that solidarity exists. That solidarity does not support the kind of movement that will liberate the Nigerian people. But you know, this is where we are at the moment. You cannot match them slush fund for slush fund. You can hear 2-point-something billion running into trillions.
And if you're taking
we can't match them
as the tip of the iceberg.
Violence for violence, as it were, because when you acquire all of this, you can't even, look, let me even make this revelation. I did an article about a fortnight ago, a month ago, if I'm not mistaken. The caption was between David Mark and David Cameron, a metaphor for public behavior standards. I got a call from first his media aide on his aide on media, and then himself. And one of the revelations was that if he knew that PDP was going to lose, he wouldn't have contested. Because why? We went on to say, look, this man who has enjoyed democracy, superintending the affairs of the most sensitive arm of democracy, this man hated democracy. He did not just hate democracy, he was an entrenched member of the military class that violently opposed to democracy, through coup.
Okay.
And on.
Sorry, Omoru has been holding on for a long time. My apologies. Good morning, sir. Please go ahead. Mr. Omoru from Ikeja.
Oh,
Too bad.
I was trying to get him to land. Now, I wonder if what Malaki has just said, that, look, when in the fight against corruption, there will be certain irreducible minimum, and when you concentrate on that, all sorts of things can happen, because you go beyond that, then quite frankly, everybody is culpable. I wonder if there's not a similar kind of thought in relation to the ongoing troubles of the judiciary.
Well, of course, that is where, and I should actually use this also opportunity to commend the NBA for actually beating a very good...
Please hold the thought. I'm going to come back to you, but let me not miss Mrs. Ikemefuna calling in from Badagry, I believe, ma'am?
Egbeda. Good morning, Mr. Yori.
Good morning, ma'am.
You know, J.E.J. was able to say that because he believed that Nigerians are docile, that will do nothing about it. But he and the judiciary, they should not forget that posterity and history will never forgive them for trying to destroy this nation. They surely pay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Ikemefuna. Short and sharp. Yes, I was
like I said, it's to actually commend the NBA for retracing itself. Initially, when you had the response of the NBA to the arrest of the judges, was to make a statement without finding out exactly what was the situation, and without even intervening or interviewing the characters and the agencies that were involved.
So
but obviously,
the NBA changed its position.
Yeah, after getting to the root of the matter.
But the change was rejected by the Chief Justice.
It doesn't matter because the Chief Justice...
As precipitate and even unnecessary.
These are things that has happened from the time... It is not because he's now the Chief Justice. He's been a member of the Justice of the Supreme Court before now. Some of them members of the NJC. All the riots we've been talking about happened under the NJC. They witnessed many of this. And I must confess, it's actually a court profession. It is also a court situation where solidarity is the watchword. As far as they are concerned.
Did you say court or cult?
Cult.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so that you can understand it, not the court. Cult. So people within that cycle, as far as they are concerned, the first thing is to defend your own, even before you get to the root of the matter.
And then somebody brings along a change program.
Exactly. And then you start a process of rationalizing, justifying, explaining. Let us not forget, out of this 2.2 billion is where we have $115 million that was also taken to South Africa and was seized in South Africa. So when the president is saying some of it, like the last caller said, we don't suffer too much of amnesia. We still remember some of these things.
Indeed.
And we need to push them back. And I still hold on to it. We need to move beyond the surface and understand that this is a scheme, and we need to identify it from the beginning and push the characters involved backward.
Indeed. Malaki, the last word.
To qualify the praise on the NBA is to give a better praise to those who were clear about what should be done. And what I mean by that is that, but for the persistent insistence of some of us in the same association, you wouldn't see you wouldn't see what you are seeing today.
Indeed.
Where Mr. Olanipo, with due respect, is disagreeing with the president of the NBA. When they both sat down initially, you wouldn't see an NJC that had woken up from slumber and then, dishing out policy guidelines that were already in place as far as April. You wouldn't see the kind of convoluted position that has the capacity to shake his proverbial court group into succumbing to the will and desire of the people. You wouldn't see an NBA that should respond just like the NBA in Pakistan that held forth and fought for the sanitization of their society. That is precisely why every person must have a position and refuse to sit on the fence, particularly when you are driven by your conviction.
One can't be neutral. One cannot be neutral. Thank you very much, Mr. Malaki Ugumadu, National President of Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. Thank you very much for sharing your perspectives. Same goes to Mr. Lanre Suraj, Chairman, Civil Society Network Against Corruption. I am Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.